I wanted, so here's, number 3. He really was determined to get married. However, it is also true that Georgie Hyde-Lees knew exactly what she was getting into. She was nobody's fool, and she chose him in full recognition of what a mess it was likely to be.
Yeats instantly regretted his decision to marry, and on their honeymoon he fell into a deep depression. Then, something happened. Georgie began to write what she described as messages coming from the spirit world.
In the midst of Yeats being very depressed about the whole thing, she attempted the automatic writing, which became almost immediately intensely interesting and important to both of them.
Yeats was captivated by Georgie's automatic writing. She would empty her mind and then spontaneously fill pages with writing and images. The process drew Yeats out of his depression and opened up a world of deep spiritual inquiry that they explored together.
She later confessed that when she did this, she did it wittingly. She knew that she was faking at the beginning, but then something else took over. And that what had begun as a subterfuge to cheer her husband up actually became, for several years, a systematic exploration.
It's a system to explain everything. History, psychology, what happens to the soul after it dies, all in one appropriately aesthetic unit. They decided something real and of vast significance was happening. And they did automatic writing together almost every night for years.
Georgie and Yeats were part of a spiritual community that conducted magic rituals and seances. They consulted horoscopes and the stars for guidance. They believed that the automatic writings could help them see into the future.
According to the theory of history of the automatic script, this is the end of a 2,000-year cycle. The 2,000 years that were ushered in by the birth of Christ. These 2,000 years have been a time in which the reigning ideas were ideas like democracy and love of the neighbor and thinking that everybody is equal and that we can all participate in something generous and good. And the one that's coming is going to be the mask of that. It's going to be the opposite of that. It's going to be a time in which democracy is not the reigning paradigm. The reigning paradigm is going to be power. Somebody is going to have power over somebody else. Hierarchy.
Yeats captured this apocalyptic view of the world in his poem, The Second Coming.
Turning and turning in the widening gyre, the falcon cannot hear the falconer. Things fall apart. The center cannot hold. Mere anarchy is loosed upon the world. The blood-dimmed tide is loosed, and everywhere the ceremony of innocence is drowned. The best lack all conviction, while the worst are full of passionate intensity. Surely some revelation is at hand. Surely the second coming is at hand. The second coming. Hardly are those words out when a vast image out of Spiritus Mundi troubles my sight. Somewhere in the sands of the desert, a shape with lion body and the head of a man. A gaze blank and pitiless as the sun is moving its slow thighs, while all about it reel shadows of the indignant desert birds. The darkness drops again. But now I know that 20 centuries of stony sleep were vexed to nightmare by a rocking cradle. And what rough beast, its hour come round at last, slouches towards Bethlehem to be born.
It's about the fear of contemporary revolutionary times, and it talks about that fear in larger terms. If we are afraid, what is that all about? It evokes that sense of, wondering about things, worrying about things, thinking about what meaning there may be, and then blammo, there's a moment of revelation, and there's something coming. It appears, scares the living daylights out of you, and then the darkness drops again.
From his darkest visions to his greatest joys, Yeats's poetry deepened as a result of the automatic writings. He tapped a rich vein of creative energy to explore all aspects of his life and work.
There's such exaltation, such a flow of new poems. One of my favorite is Tom O'Reilly, where he says, "Wisdom is a butterfly and not a gloomy bird of prey." The mind is moving again like a butterfly into the visionary world and is not weighed down by the gloomy hawk of thought that has paralyzed him for so many years.
During his lifetime, Yeats saw his vision for Ireland's independence realized, though more violently than he imagined. After a bloody war of independence which split the country in two, Southern Ireland became a free state in 1921, and Yeats became one of its first senators. Maud Gunn played no small part in the upheaval and spent time in jail for her radicalism. In 1922, Yeats achieved international acclaim by winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. He was hailed not only for bringing literature to the common man, but also for his profound contribution to contemporary poetry and drama. In his later years, Yeats moved with Georgie to the Irish countryside, where they lived in an old tower. He took an honest look at growing older and explored ways to fully embrace his art.
At this time, in his 60s, he was very conscious of age and consciously moving away from the natural world of procreation and becoming increasingly concerned with creation.
Yeats wrote about the lasting value of art that endures beyond one's lifetime in Sailing to Byzantium, one of his great visionary poems, written in 1926.
And so you imagine Yeats now standing at the top of his tower, looking out on the natural world and saying, "That is no country for old men, the young in one another's arms, birds in the trees, those dying generations at their song. An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick, unless soul clap its hands and sing, and louder sing, for every tatter in its mortal dress." That's my exaggeration, perhaps, of the way it would have been chanted, except there are notes that give us very precise details from the BBC scripts in that second stanza when he says, "An aged man is but a paltry thing, a tattered coat upon a stick." If you just read it like that, it's prosaic. But he said, "An aged man is but a paltry thing." He wanted the bitterness of being an older man there, and then he wanted the lines run together: "Coat upon a stick, pause, unless," and then comes the "unless soul clap its hands and sing," and then you're off, into what the old man prizes and the creation of monuments of an aging intellect. And for that reason, he's leaving that country and going to Byzantium. The creative imagination. Great stuff.
Yeats's creative imagination left a lasting imprint, not only on Ireland, but on all of English literature.
Yeats did invent Ireland. I think that's one of the real reasons why people keep reading him, is that he somehow managed to take his little piece of the planet and find what it had meant for other people, but then create it as what it meant for him.
The reason that Yeats is such a great poet is he addresses both the intellect and the heart. And so, although his poetry is rooted in Irish literature and tradition and culture, his themes are very much universal, like that of all the great writers in the past.
Yeats continued writing poetry until his death in 1939 at the age of 73. He wrote his own epitaph in a poem called Under Ben Bulben, the name of a famous mountain in his native Ireland and the place where he is now buried.
Under bare Ben Bulben's head in Drumcliff churchyard, Yeats is laid. An ancestor was rector there long years ago. A church stands near, by the road an ancient cross. No marble, no conventional phrase. On limestone, quarried near the spot, by his command these words are cut. Cast a cold eye on life, on death. Horseman, pass by.